Hi, welcome to Daily Coronavirus Driven Mind Stuff. My name is George Ortega, and it's Sunday, April 26th, 2020. And this is episode number 11. And I just got off a Zoom meeting with a bunch of people that I've gotten to know so well over the last several weeks. A woman who lives in Manhattan. She's what she did was brilliant. Basically, she created a group. It's a support group, so it's kind of like a group therapy, like for dealing with depression, anxiety, these kinds of feelings that we're all really struggling with during this time of distancing. And so she's developed a community where like we come on every day and spend an hour together and we're getting to know each other. There's one of our members is from Canada, another's from Virginia, New Jersey, New York. And so like I just joined that meeting every day, and it's such a positive part of my life now. So anyway, I hope you guys are doing really well. It is a challenge. And again, like sometimes, when I do this show, I feel that, that even though it is generally about whatever's on my mind or whatever, when I do the shows, I try to present information that's going to be helpful to as many people as possible, as many people as see this. So what I would strongly recommend, if you're feeling that you're not getting enough social connection in terms of like, talking with your friends or, getting out just, to take walks or whatever. Basically you'd have to like join Meetup. Okay, meetup.com. It's like, for those of you who don't know, it's a platform, an internet website where you just like, to join, it's easy. You just put in your email address and create a password, and that's all you need to do. And then you look for events, that now when Meetup was created, it was intended to be a place where we could like create events online, but then meet in person. So for example, I've been running groups on happiness and other topics for about 10 years, and that's great. I used to meet at in the Tribeca Whole Foods and here in White Plains. So now because of this distancing, all of the meetup groups, events are online, and the vast majority of them are through Zoom. So I would definitely recommend that if you want to connect with people, to feel social, we're social beings, we're social creatures. We kind of like have this innate instinctive need to congregate with people. Naturally with the coronavirus distancing, we can't do that physically, but you want to know something? I have been discovering that even though this is virtual, even though we can only see each other and hear each other, and sometimes the groups are like 5 people. I was in a group earlier where there were like 18 of us there, and so like what happens is you log on to these, you find the events on Meetup, and then you join them, and then you're interacting with people. They could be from the New York City area, I'm in White Plains, or they could be from all over the world. A couple of nights ago, I was talking to people from Japan. They created a room where they can like practice speaking English. And then there was somebody from the UK who had joined, and I'm joining from New York. So basically there are so many kinds of groups that you can join depending on your interest, depending on what you'd like to talk about. So I would absolutely recommend you doing that, because these are challenging times, and they challenge us emotionally. What do we do with this time? And it can get difficult. And so this is just a vehicle, a forum, a platform for us to be able to connect virtually. And I have to say, this is like so completely honest. Before before this pandemic happened, the distancing, I had like from last September, I believe, I started attending events at local synagogues. I decided to go back to religious observance and congregating with people, in different synagogues. Or well, I mean, before I was Orthodox, now I'm attending Reform, Conservative, Reconstructionist, Orthodox, the whole gamut. And that was my social life to a great extent. I didn't have all that, most of us for whatever reason, we don't have all that many friends. So that was my life before. And now, especially over the last couple of weeks, I have noticed that my social life has expanded, has gotten so much better because I'm meeting people. This group, of people, there's about 7 or 8 or 9 of us who will join, if not every day, 2, 3, 4 times a week at least. And so we're basically connecting once a day. And it's like we're growing into a family. That's how it feels like. We care about each other. We're getting to know each other. And we're being very good to each other, very supportive. So I really want to suggest that if you're not using Meetup, because like the reason I suggest Meetup is because basically Zoom is the vehicle, right? This is how we communicate, but you need a platform to organize it, to bring people together, to create the events and let people know about it and all. And that's where meetup.com is. Now, like, there is no expense for joining Meetup and for finding the groups and joining them. If you ever feel ambitious, like I have run 3 groups since 2010, or at least one I started in 2010. And let me tell you something, I met a person who I considered my best friend for many years, and my last 2 girlfriends I met on Meetup. They came to my events, and it has been such a wonderful, fun, and fulfilling part of my life. I would go into Manhattan and run a group. For example, one of my groups is like the Happiness and Goodness Club, where we just talk about being happier, feeling happier, just how to get there. So yeah, like the groups in Manhattan at the Whole Foods in Tribeca, we'd get, easily like 5 to 15 people at every event. And, like the smaller events were nice because like, we could get to know each other better and it was more intimate and all. And the larger events were great because it was this dynamic energy of a larger group. And but now what I'm finding is that these Zoom groups are recreating that. Not only are they recreating, and I was talking about this, to someone recently, and the idea is like, all right, some people say that it's not as good as meeting in person. There may be a case to be made that sometimes, in some ways, actually better. And let me explain this to you. Basically, interacting is about communicating, and the communication is generally verbal and visual, like body language. So in other words, like we're listening to a person, what they say, we're hearing their tone, but we're also watching their expressions. All right, so now like when you're in an ordinary conversation with, let's say, a group of 6, 7 people, you might be looking at the person who's talking to you, while they're talking, but you wouldn't be seeing other people's reactions, or you wouldn't be, seeing that person close up, for example. Let's say, like, for example, my meetings in Manhattan, there'd be a long table, and so I'd be out at one end, and there's another person at the other end. I couldn't see them all that well, perhaps. So anyway, like now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because with the Zoom platform, let's say there are 6, 7, 8, 9 people in the group. You can set up the screen so you see all of them at the same time, or you can set up the screen so where you see the person who's talking, in a much, they take up almost all the screen, and then you see the rest of the people on the side if you like. And the reason I mention this is because, again, when, like, for example, the groups that I joined, I basically put my laptop display. It's a second display that I have going into my television set, which is about 42 inches, diagonal. So the idea is, like, in terms of, like, again, I have read or heard that about at least 50%, perhaps more, of the information we get from communicating to people is nonverbal, meaning it's physical, it's body language and all. So, so what I have discovered, especially on a 42-inch screen, a person is talking, and you can connect with them so much more strongly, so much more clearly, because they're like, think of a regular news show where, like, the person's, body, whatever, like, is taking up, the screen. So you can see them very clearly, and you can see very clearly what they're feeling, how they're feeling. And that's a very important part of communication. So yeah, again, I would strongly, strongly recommend that you get on, both Meetup and Zoom to expand your circle of social interaction during this time of physical distancing. Okay, so what else? My life is, it's interesting as I wake up each morning and I remind myself, oh yes, we're in this, like, coronavirus distancing era or age or whatever. And then what quickly comes to mind is, well, it's really not so bad. There's no place I have to go. I have some meetup Zoom meetings that I've scheduled that I look forward to, but it's nice waking up. And then, like, I ask myself, well, what should I be doing? And I've been trying to learn the bass guitar for about a year and all. And it's interesting because, like, with this coronavirus crisis, part of me was thinking, well, I'm not sure it's all that appropriate, all that moral or ethical for me to be practicing bass guitar while we're in this crisis. And it was kind of like the idea of, like, there's a saying that goes, Nero fiddled while Rome burned. So the Emperor Nero of Rome, he was just like, maybe it was literal, and I don't think they had fiddles back then, but it might have been a lyre or something, some kind of musical instrument. But apparently he was, like, ignoring the plight of Rome. And, I guess to defend him in a certain sense, I'm not sure there was much he could have done. I don't know, I don't know the history all that well. But anyways, I was feeling that kind of sense of guilt. And then, I think, so I played a bit of bass guitar earlier today and last night. And, what I hope that I will continue with is, like, the feeling that, well, the bass guitar playing makes me feel good, and if I feel good and happy, then when I get onto these Zoom meetings, I can communicate that mood to other people. I can, because emotions are contagious, so I can, like, share that positive feeling with others. So again, I hope that that works out well. Okay, what else? I don't know. I just want to, like, just basically mention that Bill Maher has a 5-minute video on YouTube that basically he shames us all for, makes us aware that, hey, the reason we are in this coronavirus mess is because we've been so horribly mistreating, torturing, these are his words also, and I agree with him. We're torturing these animals. So he gives that message a strong voice, and he's a comedian, so he has a way of kind of, like, injecting humor into it while getting the point across in a very strong way. So I'm not sure if I can actually, I'm going to try to share this. I don't know how this is going to work, but I'm going to share my screen and see if I can, well, no, I basically, if you Google Bill Maher factory farming, that should take you to the video. And again, it's like a 5-minute video. So, all right, what else? So it's only 5:42, and I had intended to take a walk through town with a camera, a cell phone camera, and just video, show you the Mamaroneck Avenue going up and down. While I wouldn't have the camera like aimed at myself, I'd have it aimed at the streets, the sidewalks, and you would notice. I mean, it is a Sunday today, but like what I have noticed is that Monday through Friday, Saturday, very few cars, very few people, and so that was going to be a show. I mean, like, it's drizzling out, so I decided not to do it today, but maybe I'll do that episode tomorrow. Just take you through a walk up Mamaroneck Avenue and back down. That should be like a half an hour show. Sometimes, or actually, I may actually want to, for this episode, just make a right on North Broadway. On Main Street, go up to North Broadway, and then come back. Just give it a little variety. But that should be a fun episode. Okay. So, all right, now let's talk about where we go to from here. My take. My take is that there is a God. And my take is that there is, like this Bill Maher video presents also. I mean, this is something that's been a major part of my life, my entire adult life, that we need to be better people. The earlier part of my life, I was working to help end global poverty. Then I thought to myself, well, if I join the movement, because it had started before me, to help people become happier. As they become happier, they'll be better people, more moral. So now we're in a time where I believe God is communicating to us through this virus that we've been neglecting climate change. We've been, in denial of how we treat these farm animals. I'm just going to close these blinds because I'm feeling a little bit of a chill coming in through the window. So we've been in denial of how we've been very literally torturing these animals. Female pigs who are called sows, who are like confined to gestation crates, and these are like these enclosures that are so small that this animal cannot even turn around for months at a time. And I don't know if you're aware, but pigs are actually more intelligent than dogs. So you have to understand that they're enduring a lot of suffering. And we've been doing this for decades. So yeah, I think it's pretty clear to me, at least, from a theological perspective, that this is God helping us to become better people. When you're a parent and you punish your children, it's out of love. It's because you love them and you want to help create a better world for them, a better life for them. So this is God, not just concerned for us, but concerned for those animals. I mean, I think God is saying to himself, herself, whatever, that, decades we've been doing this, and enough is enough. We have to find a better way. All right. As I find myself doing in these episodes, I'm going to segue maybe briefly this time to the answer. Fortunately, it's very serendipitous that this coronavirus crisis comes about 7 years after we pioneered a way to end this horrible treatment of animals. So in other words, the treatment is generally in factory farms, but it's also to a certain extent in regular farms. And this new technology they developed it allows us to grow meat and fish and dairy and eggs in a way that doesn't involve any animal suffering, and in a way that, not incidentally, very importantly, would protect us from future pandemics. And this is the only reasonable option we have for that. So basically, you'll hear more about it, because I have a feeling that, as we kind of like transition from the shock of being in this distancing and everything closed to slowly coming out of it, people are going to be starting to really talk about and think about how we will prevent this from ever happening again. And I've talked about this before, and there are basically two options that we have. Well, three. The one, which I guess is the most ideal, but it's the less realistic, of course, in a certain sense. And I would love to be proven wrong on this, is that our entire world will become vegan. We'll stop eating animals, and animal products, and we'll just go to a plant-based diet, which will make us so much healthier physically. I don't believe that's very likely to happen. So the other option we have is that if our scientists could develop an 100% or, a vaccine, a universal vaccine that works against not just this coronavirus, but any other influenzas and bacterial infections, pandemic, contagions, these epidemics that we might have in the future. So again, like, my understanding is, like, at our rate of technology, of research, of science and medicine, that may be 10 or 20 years in the future. I believe we'll do that eventually, but I don't think we can do that anytime soon. I believe that a much more realistic and reasonable goal is for us to transition from farming animals for meat and dairy and eggs to growing them in labs. And again, I've talked about this before, but this message is so important that I don't think I can talk about it too much. So the idea is that in 2013, we, Mark Post of the Netherlands, a doctor, demonstrated to the world that it is possible to take a cell from an animal in a way that doesn't even hurt the animal and put it into a growth medium in the lab, and have that cell replicate and duplicate itself, so that theoretically we can fulfill our entire demand for fish, meat, dairy, eggs, chicken, beef, pork, whatever we want to eat, in a way that, one, doesn't hurt a single animal, two, is much, much healthier than the meat we get from animals now, and third, and perhaps most importantly, to us as a species, it would protect us from future pandemics. I mean, it'd be virtually impossible. I mean, there's always an outside chance that that could lead to a pandemic, but compared to our factory farming and local farming now, it would be so much more safe in terms of preventing future pandemics. And so that's, so that's the message, that's the information, but that's only part of it. The second part of it is that this industry, which started in 2013, is not financed very well. It has about 40 to 50 startups across the world that are working on lab-grown fish and meat and dairy and eggs. And they're succeeding. But at the rate of investment that they have, the top company just got a round B funding investment of $156 million. At that rate, it may take us 10 years or longer to bring these products to our supermarkets at a competitive price, competing with the meat and fish and dairy we buy now. But, and again, like when I say this, remember, we just spent $2.2 trillion on an economic stimulus package Congress just approved, and I think the president just signed another $500 billion in economic stimulus. We absolutely need to spend at least $10 billion on this new, it's called cultured meat technology. Okay, and this is like, this is a technology that's so new that you can't invest in a company like this as an individual. Only institutional investments of over $1 million can really invest in this industry. That's how new it is. But the idea is that were our government to, in the next stimulus package, devote 10 or 20 or $30 billion, because this is so important, to this new field, this new technology, then it's very reasonable to expect that within 2 or 3 years, as we're kind of like coming out of this current coronavirus crisis, we can look forward to a future where not only are we not torturing these animals and incurring God's wrath because of it. That's how I believe things happen. That's why I think this is happening to us. But we would prevent, again, future pandemics. We wouldn't have to worry about another coronavirus, another avian flu, another swine flu, another mad cow disease. So again, if you know people in government, get the word out. There are videos on YouTube that in 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes describe this new technology. There are videos on YouTube that describe how factory farming with its unsanitary conditions creates the conditions that lead to pandemics. So essentially the only way we're going to be safe from future pandemics is to transition to this cultured meat technology, and now is the time to do it. So, all right, we've got like 52 seconds left. I hope you're enjoying the day. It's a Sunday. I hope you're getting rest. And if you're not getting enough social interaction, please visit meetup.com, join it, look through the groups that they're having, and then join them through Zoom. I guarantee you'll find that it's a wonderful, wonderful way to connect with people. Okay, so this is George Ortega for daily coronavirus-driven mind stuff. We're on Monday through Friday on White Plains Channel 76 for Optimum, Verizon 45. And I will see you tomorrow night on this show. Okay, have a great day, and I will see you soon. Thank you.